Yeah, yes. Representing NAMI, New York, NAMI NYC. Have a seat. And I'm really, really excited to introduce, you know him well, Keith Wasserman. And I see she's already behind me, from Dosh, Radha Mehta, director and set. I hand it over to you.
Okay, all set. This is on. Can you hear me? No. No, it's not on.
It's on. It's on.
It's on. It should be on. Did you turn up? It's not turned up enough? There. Okay, I think that's better. Okay, great. So hi, everyone. I am Karen Verano. I am the Director of Programs and Services at NAMI, New York City. We are a peer-run organization that serves people living with mental illness as well as their family members. We've been doing it for 40 years. We are the only nonprofit in New York City that serves family members. Is this better? Let me try this. Is this better? Yeah. Some of the programs that we offer are mental health education. We have support groups. We have social groups. We also have a helpline, just to name a few. So that's a little bit about NAMI. If you have any questions, you can certainly come up to me afterwards. I don't want to spend too much time on us. I want to dig into the far more interesting things at these films. Should we start by introductions?
Certainly.
Okay, so Radha, hi. Can you see us? I don't know how this
Can you
is.
hear me? I can totally see you, and I apologize that my face is so huge on the screen. I apologize.
Okay, so would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Radha Mehta, and I served as the writer and director of this film, Dosh.
Okay, Keith.
Hello, I'm Keith Wasserman, and I am the subject of Dear Ani.
Okay, so why don't we get started with Radha. I'd like to know what inspired you to create this very moving film.
Thank you. Yeah, so my inspiration was really based on a previous relationship, being so in love with someone that had late onset bipolarism. And within our South Asian culture, that's something that we're not well equipped in understanding, because a lot of times we actually are taught homeopathic ways, such as yoga, meditation, these holistic methods. So when both my partner and I had been dealing with what he was going through, we were both navigating it for the first time, and we couldn't seek the support that we needed from within our South Asian community. And it was very difficult understanding how to seek support elsewhere. And so one thing led to another, where it was just, I was trying my best to be the person, the caregiver. But at the same time, it was just that I didn't feel well equipped to understand how to navigate that together. And so to this day, I still love him, and he's in a very amazing place now in his life. And I'm also a mother, and so the drowning is actually a little bit inspired by my own drowning when I was a little kid. And so I kind of used this format of a narrative film to be able to infuse two very important truths in my life that have had such a big impact to me within this context of being able to dismantle shame within our South Asian culture.
Yes, okay. I'm going to follow up with a couple of questions around that. But first, Keith, can you tell us what made you decide to make this fascinating film about your journey, your 20-year odyssey?
Yeah, well, it was always brewing, the story, and the director and editor of the film, my film partner Micah, he and I met in 2007, I believe, and kind of well into my fixation, if you will. And when I shared the story with Micah, he was on board, and he was like, well, this is a fascinating tale. And so we just always kind of had it kicking around, and it was during COVID that we were sort of like, okay, well, how can we have time now, what can we do to push the project forward? Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about your family members. At NAMI, we say 1 in 5 people have a mental illness, and the other 4 are your friends and family. So we think it's very important that we support the family members. We feel that in order to have real recovery, everyone around you needs to support you and to understand mental illness. So, Radha, can you talk a little bit about the impact this character's bipolar disease had on his family members?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. And one thing I forgot to mention, so I have a disability of being hard of hearing, so I wear hearing aids. And that is also very much a truth within the story, which is why I'm so grateful that I got accepted into this incredible festival. So in terms of the family, I think because we were all new to this, there was a lot of navigating to be able to understand this. So it took me a long while to even be able to share with his own family what I was having to work with. And I believe I needed the support, but it was just, I felt like it was something that, when you sign on to be, this in this loving relationship, you want to do everything you can yourself to the best of your ability. And I was starting to run out of options.
Right.
It was only after I finally discussed, that I need some help from his family because they know his son the best. That's when they disclosed, they shared with me that they do have a history of, other mental health challenges within their family.
Right.
So that was all news to me, and it's something that I never, of course, would think to ask, nor would I have ever felt the need to ask, just because of my lack of knowledge, and also because you're so loved, and it's just like anything that may, appear to someone else as, hurtful to me. I didn't see it that way. I was just very much in love, and I felt like this was just part of his personality. So I feel like that's, once it got disclosed to me about a little bit more of the history and how they were able to understand how to navigate that before, once I got their support, it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. So I think that's when they all came in, and his brothers and everything started being able to help support, to support me in being able to seek the care that he needed.
I thought it was really interesting how you portrayed the anxiety of the wife in this film, to the extent that she felt she couldn't sleep without her hearing aids. And that really, I thought, was an excellent way of depicting the kind of anxiety that family members live with when they have a loved one with a serious mental illness. You had absolutely no idea. You were always on guard, or the character was always on guard. Is that how you felt also? Or is that just the character?
It was like, there was just a little bit, for dramatic purposes, we use a little bit more, but I will say that I was hyper vigilant.
Right.
Throughout that time, and in moments where I didn't know where he was, I think that's why I was always on edge, just worried for his safety. Like, why can't I be with him wherever he may be? And, he may choose to, do what it is that he wants without telling me. So it's one of those things that I was hyper vigilant and constantly on edge and just worried more for his safety than anything. And I think as someone that loves someone, it's just you want to know where your loved ones are at all times.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Even the little boy, the son, was keenly aware of the friction that was going on. So it was a great portrayal of how mental illness is a family disease. It affects every single person in the family. So I thought that you did a wonderful job of that in 15 minutes. Yeah. It's really remarkable. Okay, Keith, you're the other side, right? You're the person with the bipolar disorder. How did your disorder affect your family members?
Well, first is to sort of reiterate that my grandfather also was very manic depressive.
Yeah.
And he, as I later learned, he swung very low as well as sort of went really high. And I have always been incredibly fortunate not to sort of have the
low.
almost the more dangerous, the more scary low parts. So I've always been grateful for that. And it sort of is in keeping with my personality, sort of in general, which is why it was a little bit harder for my family to necessarily say you really need help, you really, this is an issue, this is a problem, because it was sort of an amplification of what is already my general kind of
Upbeat
way
kind of
through the world. But I think much like your beautiful film, it wasn't until I had a family and the mania affected and potentially impacted the family that it was really, like, this is not okay anymore. This is something that needs to be addressed, and immediately.
So at that point, you got treatment.
At that point, it was sort of like, okay, yeah, there are ways, to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen, every 5 years. So to speak.
Because I noticed in the film, it's broken down by chapters and also by the manic episodes. I believe it was 6 manic episodes over the course of 20 years.
That's fair,
is
yeah.
That right? Yeah, every 3 years. Right,
give or
3,
take.
yeah. Right. How did your friends react to this 20-year odyssey? All of this amazing crafting and collaging, and did they think, oh my God, there he goes again? What was the...
Yeah, oh my God, there he goes again. It's sort of like, I don't know why this just popped into my head, but you know how they say even a broken watch is right twice a day?
Right.
Right? So it's sort of like I only have to be right twice, in 20 years for the whole thing to be, worthwhile. But there was from when I was 20 years old and the first episode happened, I started having psychotherapy and kind of being in that process of just going deep and understanding this and that. And so, as much as the story is about my mania, it's also sort of the story of the artist trying to find their voice and the piece that's like, this isn't a tale of fan obsession as much as it is, the reflection of, the work, as I was trying to sort of express in the film. And so, anyway, through sort of the psychotherapy, it was really, this isn't about Ani DeFranco. This is about your relationship with, yourself. Anyway, I forgot the question, so
That's
I'll put
okay.
a pin in it.
It was a great answer. That's all that counts. Okay. Radha, let's now turn to stigma. There's really a lot of stigma. People are very frightened of people with mental illness. So, Radha, especially in the Indian community, there seems to be a lot of stigma around mental illness. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the stigma is something that we were kind of just raised into within childhood. So like within, there's many Indians that practice the religion of Hinduism. And within Hinduism, we believe in reincarnation. And it's a lot of times when we are born into this life, and if there's like a fault of any kind, like in my case, I have a hearing disability, or in my my ex-partner's case, done like where we actually work that we're not at the same equal level as other humans within our culture. And so when you're born and raised with something like that, then it makes you feel like you're less than pretty much throughout your life.
Right.
So then dare you ever say anything to anyone outside of your home? Like we keep it under closed doors, right?
Right.
Like that's what made it hard for me to even be able to tell his family. And then of course if I try to look out for like maybe a South Asian, psychiatrist or something, like God forbid if anyone found that out. Do you know what I mean? And so that stigma is what I'm trying to dismantle, because lately there's been a lot of suicides.
That's for
if
sure.
You add that to you add that to the model minority myth, where we are, told to be like the most successful minority in all of America. then you add the mental health challenge, and we're not allowed to tell anyone about it. It's just a disaster. It's just a recipe for disaster, and just like a big explosion is ready to happen. And so that's why, like in this film, it was a very subtle way of trying to dismantle a taboo and just so specific. And I didn't want to get into beyond, him finally getting the help. Perhaps that could be for a future. But in this case, it's just being able to come out forward to say that, there's something that's a little off about this man that I love, and I need your help. And then when a disaster happens, such as a drowning of the person that you love the most, their own child, then only then is I truly believe that the person who may be dealing with a mental health challenge, they have to make the decision to seek the treatment. I can harp on their door all day to say, I need you to get help, I need you to get help. But if that person doesn't decide to do so, then nothing can change. And I would love to know your opinion on that, because being on the other side, I do feel that there's a sense of responsibility that must be taken to be able to seek the next step, and only then can change happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it was interesting how there's so much shame, and you could see the mother says, "Oh, bipolar, it's a Western construct." I thought that was fabulous. It's like, yep, it just spoke, loads about what people will say or do to dismiss the idea, oh, he's fine. I think she suggested turmeric. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah, and even his shame.
Turmeric, yeah.
Turmeric, exactly.
The stomach issues.
Exactly. Keith, I along the lines of stigma, and I was wondering if some of the stigma around people who have mental illness can be dangerous, which is completely untrue, if that may have played a part in Ani's original, like, stay the fuck away from me, response. Do you think that may have played something?
Well, absolutely.
Yep, okay.
100%. And, she has this one line. I mean, as a poet, I don't know how many Ani DeFranco fans there are that really know her, her lyrics, but there's just so many philosophical ideas, embedded in her poetry. And so one of them is the answer is in the intention. Right? So I just love this idea of the spirit, the intention. And my intention was always just to try to get behind the curtain to the person who's making the art, because that's sort of a fascinating aspect for me, in terms of the art versus the person.
Right.
So I never doubted that my intention was nonviolent, non-threatening.
Sure,
it was
you
never.
didn't, right.
And yet, I remember hearing about this person who broke into her house,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and realizing that I was sort of on the same spectrum as somebody like that. It was suddenly like, wow, I'm closing up shop. I'm packing this in, because that's just not where I want to be, at all. In terms of what this person might think is my intention, or my.
You had that self-awareness.
Yeah, so there was always like, okay, I'm going to show up at 5 a.m., but then what am I doing? It's 5 a.m. This is nonsense, and anyway, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no. I did one more comment, and then we're going to turn it over to you guys. I just thought it was pretty wonderful how she went from stay the fuck away from me to really understanding and having so much empathy and understanding that with so many really creative people, they feel so much. Clearly, she's an example of that. And there is a price to pay for that kind of creativity. That intersection between creativity and mental illness is real. It really is. Okay, enough. So I am going to turn it over to you guys. So we have one, we have two. Okay, we'll start here, and then.
We're going to pass the mic. Don't worry.
You have a mic? Okay, great.
Thank you, dear. Well, first of all, I'm on the ReelAbilities Film Selection Committee, and I have to always say that, the short films are, I'm going to say it, they're usually our favorite, and these are two of my favorites. So first of all, I'm just so thrilled to get to meet the people in front and behind these incredible short films. So congratulations. As I'm hearing you speak, first of all, I think what I see as the connective tissue and the difference between the two films is, one is the result of when you are able to be self-aware and own and get the treatment that you need and have the support versus, and I want to tell you I'm half Asian, East Asian, so I know all about the sort of toxic Asian perfectionism that I think is really harmful to all kinds of disabilities, whether apparent or invisible or whatever the case may be. And so I thought this was an incredible pairing because in one case you see the disastrous results of denial.
Right.
And then in the other case, you see the beautiful flowering of accepting yourself, being able to, you know, have this beautiful life that you've created with a family that now Ani wants to be a part of. And I do want to say, as an optimist, as soon as I started watching the film, I said, I really hope they become friends at the end of this, and it actually happened. So it's great. Also, I think it's about dreams coming true, which is also kind of a beautiful part to this story. And it, I think, takes it bigger than just, you know, mental illness. So I just wanted to say congratulations, but I also think there are incredible lessons in both films, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. I think that's real. I'm so happy that we were able to show that, and to be continued.
We have one right down here.
I'm also on the selection committee. And I wasn't going to bring that up, but now that the cat's out of the bag, why not? But I agree with Sean. These are two of my favorites too. And I just wanted to say specifically about Dear Ani, the film, the reason I gravitated to it instantly and so intently and intensely is that so often the stories in all these films are, the triumph over the disability or in spite of the disability. And specifically with the Dear Ani film, I felt like your disability, your condition, was actually fueling your art. And that was, you really almost never see that or hear about that in anything. So it was a very different take, and your art is so wonderful. So I thank you both again. Really, really beautiful films.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our selection community, as you can see, really love the films and are really good at choosing films. Not great at asking questions, I've noticed. We'll take another question from the audience. That opens it up, guys. We'll work on it.
Hi. I was not on the selection committee, but I think you guys did a great job. Thank you. So I was struck by, in Keith's film, the idea of for an audience of one. And obviously these are very personal stories. So for both of you, what's it like? What did it feel like as an artist taking a very personal subject and bringing it to the wider world?
Radha?
Ooh, you had to throw that to me first. I'll say it was, thank God I had a co-writer to help shepherd me through this process, and of course an incredible principal team. This is actually my very first narrative film, and I made this as my thesis film, so at American Film Institute. And throughout that time, it was pretty daunting to be able to kind of, first of all, write the first words of what I thought that this story could be, especially when I have two traumatic events combined. The drowning when I was a kid, and hence my reason for being so scared of water to this day, the ocean water. And then, of course, like having to deal with my previous relationship with him, of the prolonged manic episodes that he would go through, and how do you capture that within a little story? So there have been many times where I would break down. And thankfully, my co-writer was also my best friend. She would take me into a place that, take your time. Your vulnerability is this story's greatest strength. And I would keep that in the back of my mind, because I said, if this can change one person's life in terms of being able to finally be open about whatever their own family members may be going through, then I've done my job. And what happened is, when it did fortunately win some awards in the recent, past, I think it was at Slamdance, someone had come up to me and said that my brother is, we believe you may be bipolar, and I don't know what to do. And I said, here's my number. I'd be more than happy to help. I'm not, a certified professional in any way, but let me help you in whatever way, like at least I know, and I know that there's a community that can help, because we would much rather address this early and now before we suffer any consequences later. And so since then, we've been in touch, and he is now being able to seek some psychiatrist, help, which is so against typically what we're raised with, right? But now he's seeking homeopathic help as well as psychiatric help to be able to help with the chemical imbalances, and I'm so grateful for that. So it's just that one person, that audience of one, being able to change that one person's life. I've already done my job, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right on. The audience of one. I mean, I never even knew if I had an audience of one. I mean, it was like a little unknown. You send them out into the ether. But I mean, and maybe this is esoteric, but I was the audience of one. I mean, it was interesting about sort of the mania fueling the art, the creative process. And it's true, and yet there's a tipping point. So. How do you know when it's helping versus when you've lost the thread, and now you're connecting things that aren't helpful, and in fact, say again? Yeah. And I think Radha said something. I mean, you've said many things that I've just in my mind been like, oh, that'd be so relatable. But it was about trust, and trusting. I'm not a confrontational person by nature, right? So even as my mania would be escalating, there would come a point when somebody would have to sort of say, stop, or now I'm worried. Now this is concerning. Now we need to talk about hospitalization. Now, and I'm grateful that that I have that sort of community and support and family, and this kind of comes back to something that we talked about earlier. I now have like a scale of 1 to 10 for myself, and I know that I can manage up to a 5, but a 6 is like, and 7 is too late,
Are your family and friends alert to the?
Yeah, well, and it's like, I mean, it was realizing later that, like, how lucky I am to have the community that will let me go to 5, and then how, grateful I am that for whatever reason I trust them, and not be like, oh, no, I'm fine.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Even though you're at an 8. Yes.
Right.
I'm afraid, I know there's a lot more questions. I'm afraid we're out of time. We have another screening starting here coming up. Tell Them You Love Me, coming up right here in 10 minutes. So please join us for that. We'd love to have you. It's a fantastic film, and there'll be an amazing Q&A after that one as well. I want to give a big thanks to Karen and to NAMI NYC. I want to thank Keith and Radha for being here, and for your beautiful films. Folks, spread the word about these amazing films. We're only here this week. Tell everybody to join us for this festival. Please fill out our feedback form, and we look forward to seeing you at other screenings. Thank you very much.